Greetings and a warm welcome from me, astrologer Patrick Arundell, to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the two eclipses of October 2023. The first on the 14th is an annular solar eclipse, but the second in a series between the signs of Aries and Libra. But the second on the 28th is a partial lunar eclipse, but the sixth and final eclipse in a series between the signs of Taurus and Scorpio. So these two eclipses come from different series, but we have to in some ways integrate them to understand what the impact will be on the last 2.5 months of 2023, but also the first 4 months of year 2024. And I'm going to help you to do that. Now, what I will do is go through the maths, of course, and the degrees and the decans that each of these eclipses occur in, but also I'm going to give you some more information, particularly to do with the nodes, because the nodal axis, as you know, switched on the true node the 17th of July, but before that, for the 18 months before that, it was in the sign of Taurus. And that coincided, of course, with the eclipse series that we're emerging from. So how is this going to impact upon us all collectively, but also on each of the 12 zodiac signs? So I'm going to give you a flavour of what to expect in the last 2.5 months of this year, but also in that first third of year 2024. Now, if you are new to my channel, it's lovely to have you with us. This is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please share them. I do try to interact with each one. If you're a returning visitor, it's great to have you with me once more. If you've yet to subscribe, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. If you've already subscribed, your support is really, truly appreciated. Now, I'd just like to say, if you'd like to watch your year 2024 deep dive astrology and horoscope forecast for each of the 12 zodiac signs, please see the link beneath this video and you can enjoy those at your leisure. But I'd also like to share a very exciting opportunity. Obviously, year 2024 is racing towards us, but if you'd like to order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast based on your unique birth data now, I'll prepare the rest of year 2023 for you free of charge. But also my special package of 30% off, you can get your character analysis, your life roadmap report. Now, the combination of these two reports, totally unique to each person they're produced for, will help you to gain searing insights into your prospects ahead, but also a much more intimate understanding of the patterns that have played out in your life so far. And by getting to know the energies better, the more you can steer your future hopes in an effective way. Please see the link below for more. So on the screen now is the annular solar eclipse of the 14th of October in the sign of Libra. Now, I've produced this in solar format, so the ascendant is essentially 0 degrees in Aries, and that's because we can all relate to this. So the sun, the moon, but also Mercury are all in the sign of Libra, but the 7th house of relating, just to keep it nice and simple. But the position of the sun and the moon do represent the finger of God, the Yod, because if we look at the position of Neptune in house 12, mysteries, healing, psychology, but also what's not terribly physically substantive, and the position of Uranus in house 2, the sign of Taurus, the way they're angling back to the sun and the moon means that we have a quincunx between those two to the position of the sun and the moon in Libra. So what does this mean? Well, I feel in terms of relationships, not necessarily easy to integrate what we want, because Neptune can bring a bit of mystery but secrets to the occasion, but also Uranus brings some potential discordantness around values and money. So the energy that we've got still going on on that 28th of October lunar eclipse in Taurus is actually represented within this event too. So the way we want to relate to people over the next 6 months, we have to be aware of what may be withheld from us, particularly if we look at the position of Saturn also in house 12. So psychological issues can impact on relationship hopes and also our different values. So people have a different approach to money, self-worth, or their core values, and that can feed in and inform our relationship choices. So that's really essentially what that event chart is telling us. So let's look at that lunar eclipse of the 28th of October. It occurs at 8:24 p.m. Universal Central Time, and the Sun and the Moon are at 5 degrees and 9. But the Moon, the great thing about the Moon being in the sign of Taurus is that it is exalted in this sign. So it's the second most favourable location for the Moon to be after being at home in Cancer. And it's also pretty close to Jupiter, which granted is in a retrograde. But I want to draw your attention to Mars, the ruler of Scorpio, pretty close to the Sun. It's about 6 degrees away, but very close to Mercury. And Mercury in Scorpio is fantastic for diving deep and understanding what's really meant rather than what's said. If anyone works in accounting or banking, insurance or investigative work, the chances are they will have Mercury in Scorpio or the 8th house. So this is an opportunity really, with the energy and vitality that the opposition between Jupiter and Mercury and Jupiter and Mars brings. It's an opportunity for us to show a lot of enthusiasm to try to balance our books in a way which has proved pretty elusive over the last couple of years. But you can see that with Mars and Jupiter particularly in opposition, there can also be the potential to be extravagant and to feel that things will work out well as long as we're positive and we do something in a very direct and quick and decisive way. And I think it's important, the lessons we've learned is all to be much more careful with our spending, because once it's gone, it can leave us feeling exposed if suddenly our income falls or our fixed costs go up that we have little control over. So a very exciting eclipse in some ways because of that opposition between obviously the Sun and the Moon, but Jupiter and Mercury and Mars. So I feel that we can bring an added dynamism to our approach to resources, but we also need to stay grounded, which is where the Taurus energy comes in. Now, how do these two eclipses integrate with one another? Well, I think it's quite simple. When it comes to relationships, and it is revealed in the Libra solar eclipse chart because of the position of Uranus in the second solar house being in the quincunx, we need to make sure that how we relate to people keeps values at the heart of our decision making, not necessarily money. And there is a distinct difference. So if we can all become much more conscious of shared values, of what we all collectively need to work together, then we can use the more collaborative energies of Libra to find not necessarily everything we need, but a lot more than perhaps we can get just by being on our own. Now, the Aries energy is much more about promoting the agenda of self. And so the Libra energy is trying to balance that. So you can see that whether it's Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, it's all about trying to find a balance. And I would say that's essentially what astrology is about. So over the next 6 months, around relationships in particular, finding unanimity around our attitude to resources, consumption and money is probably a lofty ambition. But if we can all move a bit in terms of reducing our consumption, being a little bit less materialistic in our approach, and a little bit more concerned about how our fellow human is feeling, the person who lives down the street that we don't know terribly well, who might live on their own, reaching out, Libra, to say hi might do wonders for that person's morale, that Taurus energy, the self, the sense of worth. So That's the big opportunity over the next 6 months for us all collectively. But what about you in terms of your zodiac sign? Please stay with me for more. So Aries, because you've got Saturn and Neptune in your 12th house, and Neptune is applying to that lunar eclipse, it's quite clear that you need to stay very aware of the psychological implications of your relationship. So for example, if you're with someone, you might think the world of that person. You might really be trying your absolute hardest to make it work. But if they're not fully opened up, they're not fully committed, you feel there is something that's been kept from you, a secret. Maybe someone's praising you with in some kind of limited way. They're not really wholesomely supporting you. I think what this eclipse series, the two together, are saying over the next 6 months is, look, you need to value yourself, the Taurus energy, to make sure that you get the respect you deserve. And if a relationship isn't meeting that minimum requirement of respect, it's probably best to find one that does. But that's easier said than done. And of course, the problem with 12th house energy is we can't always see it, because sometimes the attitudes are kept hidden and maybe shrouded in secretive behavior. And we can't deal with what we can't see. So whatever you do around relationships, the best way forwards is to feel that your gut instinct is really telling you that everything is okay, and there is a sense of disclosure between you and anyone that you're friendly with or you're connecting with, and that's going to give you a sense of confidence, and your relationships can thrive if all those basic criteria are in place. Taurus, for you, what a journey it's been through that eclipse series, and in a way it's very much in keeping with the Aries Libran energy for us all collectively, because what I feel the eclipses have been pushing you to do is actualize your individual talent. Uranus has been pushing you to do that as well, more recently Jupiter. You've also had Pluto pushing you to dare to be different. But this is all for a sign that's had a huge appreciation over many years of continuity. So there probably has been changes, but also resistance going on in your situation. And it just depends on how you flex to deal with that, and whether you have been able to adjust. If you haven't adjusted, what's happening with the Aries energy is it's become more psychological along with the North Node, and you have to embrace it. That's the key. You can't ignore it. And on the solar eclipse, because Uranus in your sign is forging the quincunx to the position of the Sun and the Moon, which for you is very much to do with house 6, practicalities, but also your health. Make sure that your health is your priority over the next 6 months. But I feel the greatest way to feel healthy is to make sure that you're not just of service to others, or you're just fulfilling a smaller role in a bigger situation where you as an individual don't feel heard. So the lessons of the last few years that Taurus and Scorpio eclipses have given you are still very much to the fore, but you also need to integrate through the Aries and Libran energy a greater appreciation of your psychological health and how that informs your physical vitality. And that's really the energy for the next couple of years for you. Gemini, to be honest, the Libra solar eclipse is really exciting, because this is going to help you to showcase your talent, but also to enrich yourself around life's more enjoyable strands, whether it's being sociable, creative, even, dare I say, romantic. So also, because the eclipse occurs in the third decan, it's emphasizing your ruler Mercury, so your communicational skills can really flourish. So a great opportunity to tell people and share with people what you're about. But what about that Taurus lunar eclipse? Well, I feel with also Uranus being in your 12th house for 4.5 years now, it has been at times a tough hoe if you do find it difficult to integrate your vulnerabilities or concerns, or you try to solve every problem through your mind. We all have a shadow side. The more we're aware of our fears and vulnerabilities, the more we can accept them and make them part of us, because we're not judging them. So it just depends on the type of person you are, to be honest. But if you really want to go forwards and demonstrate to people all your wide scope of skills and brilliance, you can do it, but you must absolutely either integrate that shadow side, come to terms with it, or feel at ease with some of the things about yourself that may, in some ways, as you see it, not be quite as strong as you would like. But it's fine, because that's the human condition. So an opportunity to flourish, as long as you can accept the parts of you which at times could feel a little bit tender. So Cancer, for you, the solar eclipse is all about where you live and how you live there. But the Taurus energy, along with Uranus and Jupiter, has been very idealistic. So that has seen you connecting with different types of people or different belief systems over the last couple of years. But at heart, you really are someone who has to feel that your environment works for you. And if it does, then you can flourish. So if you're working in an environment which is exciting, stimulating, but you don't feel that it is very nurturing, it doesn't feel like it has much simpatico, the buzz of that can start to decline, because you could find yourself revisiting your traditional need to feel peace, tranquility and safety. So in other words, in simple terms, if you're not happy where you live, the chances are you could change it over the next year and a half. So Leo, for you, the solar eclipse is very much about showcasing your ideas. And with Mercury also in the sign of Libra, and the event happening in the third decan also influenced by Mercury, I think the pace of life is really going to pick up. There could be an opportunity to retrain in some ways, learn new skills in terms of your professional world, which is the Taurus energy. The Taurus energy is asking you to adapt in some way, particularly with Uranus. Are you resisting that? You can be, of all the fixed signs, I feel, the one that least likes change. And because you're very proud and you give off this very coping and very capable aura, people don't necessarily feel that you may have some vulnerabilities. But I feel that if you do need to find a work or connection to the wider world that it really switches on your mind more, you need to consider it, even if it does mean a change. Virgo, for you, the solar eclipse is in your second house of everyday resources. But the position of the lunar eclipse is in your ninth house of expansion and at times extravagance. So if you don't balance the two, you are going to end up in another year and a half's time, potentially feeling a little bit less well off than you are now. What you can do is use the open-mindedness of the ninth house energy of the Taurus lunar eclipse to welcome in new ideas, which then inform your attitude to the foundations of your world. So some kind of new ideas I feel are absolutely essential for you, but if you can be open to that, I also feel your financial situation can markedly improve over the next year and a half. Now Libra, for you, the solar eclipse is really, really exciting, because you're a sign that spends a lot of your time tuning into what other people require from you. And let's take that first total solar eclipse on the 20th of April. That was an example that was clashing with Pluto, which has really caused so much mischief since 2008. So even if you've tried in the last 6 months to get on with people, you may have found that they have, in some ways, have leveraged the bargain. It's been kind of on their terms. It's not been much fun. So now you have an opportunity to work in your own power more and be more individualistic in your approach, which I think can be really good for you. And remember, you get a second solar eclipse in your sign on the 2nd of October next year. So, and each time Mercury is going to be supporting you, but next year even more strongly. But at the same time, you are going to experience the energy coming from the sign of Aries. And you're not going to forget a habit of a lifetime of being a people pleaser, but it's just finding the boundaries and where you can shine as an individual. Seize the moment. Scorpio, for you, the solar eclipse is in your 12th house. quite delicate, very much to do with emotions. But the lunar eclipse is in your 7th house of relationships, where Uranus retains its location. So I feel around relationships, if there's something that has been hidden, not discussed, some fear, some anxieties, they do need to come out over the next 6 months in particular. But integrating your relationship needs is, in a way, are you fearful that people will judge you if you've sensed you have got some weaknesses? Or maybe there is something you've been doing in a secretive way. It could be an interest you've got, maybe some kind of thing that perhaps you don't feel you should be doing. Maybe it's the odd flutter and your partner doesn't know about it. That kind of stuff, if you can get it into the open, will make you feel better, but it could affect the status of the relationship. But if there is something that you're harbouring that's a secret, that is in some ways not making you feel great about yourself, I think you are going to be compelled to open up, whether you want to or not. Sagittarius, the Libra eclipse is wonderful because it's in your 11th house. Now, that's very Aquarius energy. The thing that you share in common with Aquarius people is a love of freedom, but also can be very friendly and easygoing and pretty unjudgmental, to be honest. So some new people can come into your world over the next year and a half, or some new directions, and in a very exciting way. Where does the Taurus energy come in? You have to change some practical elements of your life in order to grasp that big picture. Now, the big picture is something you're often really excited by. The small picture, the energy of the 6th house, where the Taurus eclipse is the part of your chart that you find most dull, because that's about routines, it's about details, it's about, just grinding away at the everyday routine, and that's not really you. You do like variety, stimulation. You're a mutable sign, so you like to be moving around in your thinking or your physical trips. So you need to find a balance. And I think your particular life structure, if it is holding you back from going for your big dream, that may need to change. If your big dream needs to see a reorganization, you're going to need to do it. So Capricorn, the Libra solar eclipse occurs in your sector of success, but the lunar eclipse in the part of your scope to do with expressing your individual talent. Now, this particular solar eclipse can work really well for you simply because your sign has an incredible appreciation of application. And you know that if you keep grinding away towards a long-term goal, slowly but surely you make your way up that mountain, the goat, to the highest point you can reach. You may not gallop up there, it's step by step, but I feel that what Uranus has been doing over the last couple of years, along with Jupiter more recently, has given you actually a great deal of pleasure in being more free-spirited and experimental, which is great. But if you want to feel much more comfortable with your worldly role, you want all the attributes of status, the car, the house, and all the rest of it, it is going to be, if you want to make it to the proverbial celestial boardroom, playing by the predetermined rules. So in other words, sticking to what other people expect of you, but is that going to pulverize your passion? So that's the equation you've got to unlock over this next 6 months. Aquarius, the Libra solar eclipse, really exciting because it points towards expansion, change, opening up your world, being more free-spirited. There's been so much around where you live and how you live there, and the emotional component of your relationships. That's because of the 4th house energy of the Taurus side of things, but also Uranus, your modern ruler, and Jupiter, but also Pluto in your 12th house solar-wise. Since 2008, really raking up a load of stuff, and perhaps you found out who you could really trust and rely upon, and some of the people that have fallen away in your life may have been people that it was very hard to take. And then the Scorpio energy was pushing you to make changes in terms of your worldly involvements. So I think the great thing about the solar eclipse in Libra, because it's an air sign energy, it's freer. It's much more about travel, expansion, higher education, being more adventurous and independent, which certainly fits in with your nature. but also finding that balance in your life. You know, you often are a very fair person, so if you're working or living in an environment which you don't feel that you get much response back from others, you're going to want to change where you're living still to make to find the place where you can really feel enriched by the connections to people. So, you know, if you are living somewhere that you don't feel happy, you're going to escape in the next 6 months. You're going to find a way to do it, or find a way to adapt it physically to make it more spacious, or to take up some new hobbies. So Pisces, it's all about the dialogue, but not just about the chit chat, because the solar eclipse is very much about the much more invested dialogue, the things that are really profound, maybe about even the meaning of life. Your situation can transform hugely over the next year and a half, and it could be around an investment, a property matter, it may be around a romantic alliance, but the conversation around these things, because obviously they're all huge things, the conversation needs to work, it needs to be integrated. And when we have a quincunx essentially in astrology, it's very hard to get that integration. So over the last few years there's been a lot of buzziness around you, but more recently with Saturn in your sign, perhaps a sense of exhaustion at moments. But now this solar eclipse gives you a chance to evolve on some more, to find out what you really, really want, what you crave at a deeper level. But your thinking and your conversations have all got to support that much more transformational direction. The 8th house can also be about life's mysteries. If you have a passion for those crime detective programs on telly, you could find those gripping you. Or it could be anything around the esoteric space, takes on a much more fascinating attraction to you. So a lot of thinking, a lot of chat, but it means it needs to be about things that have a deep meaning and can transform your world in a physical sense, perhaps financially, or perhaps in a more spiritual or psychological way. It's been a real pleasure being with you, and thank you so much for joining me for this Eclipse special. Please do feel that you can like, comment, share or subscribe. But for now, take care and all the best.